Opening credits. Emergency Preparedness. Learning about plans and kits for disaster survival. Written by Wesley Jones. Narrated by Rick Parody. Introduction. Emergency Preparedness Plans. An emergency is defined as a critical situation that requires immediate and systematic attention despite it occurring unexpectedly. Critical emergencies and disasters require the intervention of a facilitating body that is equipped to handle them with precision care. Emergency preparedness plans are designed to provide maximum provisions for survival and a quick recovery. The plan components remain the same irrespective of the type of disaster. Municipal officials take on the responsibility of ensuring the safety of citizens in their area during a calamity. They typically follow municipal emergency preparedness plans to handle such situations. Such plans are used during emergencies ranging from floods and earthquakes to poison gas leaks and terrorist attacks. Professionals such as doctors, Army personnel, and firemen are trained on a regular basis to address emergencies. It is equally important to train every citizen to effectively handle crisis during an emergency, particularly while waiting for help to arrive. Emergency preparedness plans, when well implemented, result in efficient disaster management. While planning for emergencies, there are a few factors to be considered, such as the available resources, goals, strategy to be used, and most importantly, the results expected as a result of these plans. Municipal official plan for citizens to participate in mock emergency preparedness programs to ensure viability of the plan. Emergency preparedness exercises are useful only if all the parties participate cooperatively. It is possible to obtain valuable inputs during such exercises when participants relate feedback on the plans and suggestions for changing or adding certain procedures or resources. Floods or hurricanes require greater emphasis on planning preparedness, as the extent of damage is huge. Supplies such as food, water, and shelter are indispensable during such times. Planning ensures that survivors are sufficiently equipped to get through the recovery stage. In emergency preparedness plans, the activities of government bodies such as the police, firemen, and the Army are coordinated to meet the needs. Chapter 1. What is an emergency preparedness plan and what is its purpose? A plan that is developed in order to handle, stay safe in, and eventually survive an emergency situation, such as a natural disaster, is known as an emergency preparedness plan. Everything that an individual or a group must do in case of an emergency or a natural disaster, like an earthquake or a hurricane, is considered in this plan. Emergencies can also include chemical contamination or terrorist attacks, which are man-made disasters. All these types of disasters must be covered in any proper emergency preparedness plan. When an emergency preparedness plan is created, there are many things that need to be considered and included. When creating a preparedness plan for an emergency, the first thing that an individual, group, or family has to think about is what they will be doing in case of a disaster or emergency. Where they will go and what they will in case of the occurrence of an emergency situation are some of the things that are supposed to be included in such a plan. For instance, in the occurrence of a tornado, a family can immediately run to the storm cellar. Often evacuating their home, school, or work becomes necessary for people during certain types of disasters and emergencies. Thus, details of proper and safe evacuation must also be included in a good emergency preparedness plan. Details regarding what will be carried along by everyone during the evacuation also needs to be included in this plan. For instance, storing some extra cash, additional prescription medications, ID, and medical cards in a secure and easy-to-reach place will allow people to access them instantly in case of evacuation during an emergency. In case it becomes necessary for the members of a family to evacuate in case of an emergency, and they are not together, then a common meeting place should also be decided and included in the plan too. An emergency situation can even result in the blockage or inaccessibility of a meeting place. In this case, it is best that several different meeting places are decided so that members can gather at another meeting place if one or more of them cannot be accessed. Selecting an out-of-state contact for every family member is also appropriate when an emergency preparedness plan is being created. A list of emergency numbers that can be contacted in case of an emergency situation should also be prepared when creating this plan. Apart from writing the numbers down and storing them in electronic devices, some of them should also be memorized. Evacuation during certain emergencies or natural disasters is often not in the best interest or might not even be possible. In this case, a list of provisions that will be required to stay in, whether at home or at any other place, should also be prepared. Emergency supplies will have to be stored in a safe place beforehand, so they can be accessed if an emergency or disaster strikes at any moment. Creating an emergency preparedness plan is the best form of guidance for an emergency and to be ready for it. There are no guarantees in life, and that is completely true when it comes to preparing for natural disasters. You never know when one of these unexpected events could take place, and in recent years, it seems like they are happening more and more frequently. To truly protect yourself and your loved ones, you should have an emergency preparedness checklist. Unfortunately, many people do not take the concept of emergency preparedness seriously. Thankfully, creating such a list is not difficult, and if you only take a few moments to assemble one, you will have the peace of mind that you need just in case you are faced with an unexpected emergency. All that you really need for complete emergency preparedness is a mapped-out plan, essential supplies, and a logical head on your shoulders. Planning is key to have all these things. If you take the time to plan out your emergency preparedness checklist, you can trust that you will be ready to go in an emergency. On the supplies section of your emergency preparedness checklist, you will want to have any and all of the supplies that you may need in an emergency. Additionally, you will want to give some thought as to how these supplies should be stored. Mobility is important when it comes to preparedness, so you may want to use portable plastic tubs or even a large backpack. On your emergency preparedness checklist, you will want to have a list of important contact numbers and family details that includes ages and emergency contacts for any children in the family. Additionally, you will want to have a list of medical contacts, such as family doctor, dentist, etc. Of course, a first aid kit is also essential, as well as a supplemental supply of any prescription medications and supplemental pairs of glasses, dentures, etc. Additionally, for true preparedness, you will want to have an ample supply of bottled water, along with non-perishable foods like granola bars and canned goods. Of course, you will need a manual can opener to get those foods out. You should also try to have a change of clothes on hand, in addition to blankets and sleeping bags. A battery-powered radio, flashlight, and extra batteries are also important to have on hand. You also want to be sure you have some emergency cash on hand just in case you need it. An emergency preparedness checklist should also include an escape plan for your family. Be sure to draw this plan out and detail where any doors, stairways, and windows are in addition to the location of your emergency preparedness kit. Emergency preparedness. Top 5 things to do in a disaster. Emergencies and disasters happen more often than we like to think about. The topic of emergency preparedness is being talked about more and more often. Natural disasters seem to be increasing. Terrorist threats are in the news. The question of emergency preparedness covers many areas, from mindset to materials. This article is designed to help you begin your emergency preparedness efforts. We start with a list that you will initially find unexpected, yet also common sense. Being prepared is not something that you do once and then forget about. It is a mindset, a lifestyle, a way of being the world. This is not meant to frighten, but in fact to comfort. Being prepared for a disaster limits the initial panic when something horrific occurs, thus increasing the likelihood that you and your family will survive the days ahead. There is not much that can be done while an event, such as an earthquake, tornado, or bomb, is occurring, if you have not been able to get away from the area. But after it is all over, there are 5 top things you need to do next. Number 1. Move slowly. This is very counterintuitive, as the first inclination is to jump into action. Adrenaline is flowing and panic is setting in. Moving slowly does not mean to do nothing, or even to not take action. It means to take deep breaths, and to work hard to think and then act. Even an extra 5 to 10 seconds of thought will allow your brain the time to make better judgments as to what action to take. Number 2. Survey the scene. Assess the situation and determine what is most life-threatening. Is someone in dire need of first aid? Is there a gas leak? Is a person pinned under a beam? Is there potential for another event or attack? This is a triage moment. There will be many things to focus on. Immediate danger is first. Number 3. Take immediate action to address. Now take action to address the most immediately crucial situations. If you have been somewhat thoughtful in your preparedness, you may have access to your emergency preparedness kit and your first aid supplies. These should be in every home, auto, business, classroom, etc. Render the first aid that is needed. Move away from danger that still exists. Help people who need it the most. Number 4. Look for safe, close shelter. Once you have addressed anything that is immediately life-threatening as best as possible, it is time to think ahead. Find a safe shelter as close as possible so that anyone looking for you can find you. If you are in your car, stay there, unless the car itself is dangerous. Cars can provide a wealth of safety, shelter, and heat. Again, when you think about emergency preparedness, your car is a place you should be prepared to live in for at least 5 days, at all times. Number 5. Stay as calm as possible. Panic uses valuable energy. You now need to think about conserving your energy, your body heat, water, and food. Good emergency preparedness means that you have some kind of kit that contains water, food, heat source, and shelter in your home and in your car. Ideally in your office as well. Think about this today and take action today to set this up for yourself and your family. Emergency preparedness plans. Results of emergency situations can be very frustrating. This is why it is imperative to take a few moments to devise an emergency preparedness plan to relieve you when there are substantial lifestyle disruptions brought upon by emergencies. Important parts of emergency preparedness plan. Your emergency preparedness plan should include several important aspects. One of these is to select a meeting place when a disaster occurs. In case of fire, you should make a plan to meet in front of your home or at the nearest fire exit. And in case of emergency that requires evacuation, you should meet at a specific place outside the neighborhood, like the relative's house or the neighborhood's playground. Another important part is the role that each member of the family should play in an emergency. The children should be well acquainted with the kinds of danger that the family may face and the types of disasters that may happen. This should be discussed with them in a way that won't scare them, but rather make them feel prepared and empowered. Aside from these two, each family member should also know how to shut off utility services, such as electricity, gas, and water. This should be part of the plan, since failure to shut these things off can pose greater danger. And lastly, your emergency preparedness plan should also include keeping an emergency preparedness kit on hand. These kits should include batteries, a battery-powered radio, and flashlight. The first aid kit should also be nearby. In case of injuries, this can be used prior to the arrival of a medical team. Making an emergency preparedness plan will not only prepare you for the possible dangers that an emergency situation may bring, but also help save your life or the life of a loved one. Chapter 2: Emergency Preparedness Kits. Many homeowners choose to invest in emergency preparedness kits only when the family starts to get bigger. This should not be the case because anybody, even those living alone in a house or apartment, can invest in these kits for emergency purposes. Emergency preparedness kits should not necessarily be life-saving. They should, however, be enough to help you sustain yourself until the time that relief crews and rescuers can assist you. Some recommended emergency preparedness kits. The recommended emergency preparedness kit is the basic first aid kit, which includes different types of medicines, antiseptic wipes, and bandages. Emergency situations can usually cause injuries. This is why having a first aid kit on hand is very important to treat the injury as soon as possible to avoid serious problems later on. If the disaster is a major one, the medical personnel can look after seriously hurt victims. Anything you can do to stay out of their way will be very helpful since you already have a kit you can use to treat yourself. Aside from first aid kit, a kit which includes a flashlight, a battery-powered radio, and extra batteries can also help a lot during emergency cases. Some disasters can cause damage to electrical posts and wires, resulting in a power failure that can stretch over a span of days. With a flashlight on hand, you can make your way through the dark. The battery-powered radio, meanwhile, can be used to keep you updated on emergency instructions from state and local officials. And since batteries can run low quickly, you can always use the extra batteries from your flashlight and radio. Emergency situations can happen anytime, anywhere, and to anyone. But if you have an emergency preparedness kit, you save yourself from a lot of trouble and worry. Earthquakes, hurricanes, and storms. These are some of the natural calamities that usually hit the country and that can also occur unexpectedly. This is why everyone needs to play their own role in preparing for these emergencies. It is essential that each individual be aware of emergency preparedness. Some things to do. Emergency preparedness should start at home. Every individual should be ready at all times to undertake the necessary preparations to avoid the negative results of certain emergencies. If you have enough money to purchase extra food whenever you hit the grocery store, you can buy a sufficient amount for future use. This is a wise move, especially when a storm suddenly hits your place and it is dangerous to be outdoors. Aside from food, it is also advisable that you keep an extra supply of clean drinking water. Water is even more important than food. It is vital that you save at least a gallon of water a day for each member of the household for 3 days. Another thing that you should do is to secure your home with a first aid kit complete with different medications. This kit can be very helpful during emergency situations, most especially if there is no nearby clinic or hospital in your area. You should always be ready with a family evacuation plan in case the worst comes to worst. This is very important during emergencies because this will help you ensure the safety of each member of the household and prevent panic and possibly an accident. There are some things that you can do in preparation for emergency situations. If you are willing to take the necessary steps to avoid undue stress during dire situations, then you need not worry so much when an emergency hits. What emergency preparedness plan do families need to be prepared? It is almost impossible to stress on the importance of having an emergency preparedness plan. However, A disaster preparedness plan becomes even more vital when you have your family to worry about. Therefore, to save yourself and your loved ones from harm and heartbreak, take some time from your busy schedule and implement the following steps. Step number 1. Educate yourself on the dangers you face. Before you can draft your plan, you need to find out what could happen to you and your family. You can surf the internet or contact your local emergency management office to discover what disasters are most likely to occur in your area. Make sure to note down how you can prepare for each situation, as well as how disaster preparedness to detect early warning signs. In addition, if you have pets, senior citizens, or disabled family members, make sure to find out how to help them and care for them until the danger is over. To make sure that your emergency preparedness plan is comprehensive, ask about the safety measures at your workplace and children's schools. If they don't have any, urge them to do so and share your research on the dangers that can hit the area. Step number 2. Draft the plan. Now that you know what you might face, it is time to plan how you can prepare your family and reduce the risks they face. First, make sure to focus on the best escape routes and the safest spots during different disasters. Next, look for hazards which can harm your family and limit their damage. Also consider making a few necessary additions, like installing smoke detectors and fire extinguishers. Once you're done, start creating stores of emergency supplies, such as canned food, gallons of water, and first aid kits. If you don't know what to include and don't have enough time to attend emergency preparedness classes, you will be better off buying a survival kit that lasts a minimum 72 hours. Step number 3. Teach the plan to your family. Gather the whole family to explain the importance of disaster preparedness and how everyone can be safe from fire and natural disasters. Discuss your plan in detail and provide each member of your family with a set of responsibilities. For example, your older children can be taught to use the fire extinguisher, while their younger siblings can be put in charge of guiding the family pet to safety. While educating your family, make sure that everyone remembers emergency telephone numbers: fire, ambulance, police. This will help them connect you in case you become separated. If your children are too young to memorize phone numbers, consider agreeing on a meeting place they can easily reach. Step number 4. Practice your plan. To guarantee that your family remembers your well-designed plan, quiz them about what to do and arrange surprise, fire, and emergency drills. As for you, you will have to test your emergency preparedness tools and replace your necessities before they expire. If the recent storms have taught people anything, it's that emergency preparedness is crucial for survival. Whether it's a storm, flood, a typhoon, a tsunami, or an earthquake, individuals must always anticipate the possibility of tragedy and act accordingly. That being said, following are some things one should know about emergency preparedness. Food and water. This one is pretty obvious, but unfortunately a lot of people miss out on this one. When it comes to emergency preparedness, food and water should be packaged in a way that is easily accessible and handy. For example, food should be something instant, like canned foods that do not require too much preparation. Water should be around 1 gallon per person every day. Another gallon may be needed for pets. There are actually a lot of things one has to consider for emergency preparedness. One of the biggest mistakes people make during this ordeal is leaving it too late. Emergency preparedness should be done days or weeks before the actual calamity, especially if it was predicted. For example, the public is usually warned about typhoons before they even enter the area of concern. Hence, try to pack up everything the minute information has been sent and use the remaining days to fill in gaps. Currently, there are emergency preparedness kits being sold by various companies, allowing individuals to last for as long as 3 days during a calamity. It might be a good idea to purchase one of these kits when anticipating or before anticipating an actual emergency, as they already contain everything a person might need. The sooner they purchased, the better would a person fare, as they can add more items that they feel the kit might lack. Chapter 3. Prioritize your requirement for effective emergency preparedness. An emergency can be anything starting from an uninvited financial trouble to something as devastating as an earthquake or any other natural disasters. With all the development in science, it is still difficult to know when an emergency will happen. Therefore, the best thing to do is to prepare yourself and your family to face emergencies. Emergency preparedness is an important subject, and different people have different views about it. For some people, having a 72-hour kit is crucial for survival in emergencies, while, for some others, it is storing enough food to sustain a family for a whole 1 year. Well, whatever your idea about emergency preparedness, taking care of things well ahead of time will help make it easier to deal with emergency situations. The most sensible thing to do for emergency preparedness is to start small and buy a 72-hour kit for each member of the family. Basically, one 72-hour kit contains enough items for survival of an individual for 3 days. It includes items such as food, water, medicines, clothes, toiletries, and other essential items. Nowadays, there are several online stores selling inexpensive, pre-assembled 72-hour kits. Most of these kits come with an instruction manual to train you about the usage of various items included in the 72-hour kits. Try not to include things that are not absolutely necessary for your survival during an emergency. Stuffing the kit with unwanted items will make the kit heavy and will cause trouble in case of an urgent need to travel during the emergency. Keeping a small emergency kit in the trunk of the car is a good idea, as this will help you stay safe when you are away from home. Now, once you are done taking care of your immediate survival needs and 72-hour kits, you can move on to other emergency preparedness projects like food storage. While planning to store food in large amounts, it is important to learn food storage basics to prevent contamination of food by rats or rodents. In addition to food storage, other items that family uses on a regular basis, such as shampoos, soaps, sanitary items, as well as garbage bags, etc., should be stored for an emergency. Remember, it is important to recycle these items in order to prevent them from expiry. In addition to 72-hour kits and food storage, there are some other items like water barrels, tents, etc., that need to be bought for emergency preparedness and can be costly. Most people overlook this aspect of emergency preparedness mostly because they are ignorant about this. It is a good idea to set some money aside every month to have enough funds to invest in these items. Remember, it takes time to understand the entire procedure of emergency preparedness. Using common sense will help you achieve a well-planned emergency preparedness for you and your family. Can an emergency preparedness kit save your family from disaster? We have all heard and seen how devastating earthquakes, hurricanes, and other disasters can be. But do most people realize the full impact of these events? I believe the answer is no. Do you think you and your family can survive following a disaster without an emergency preparedness kit? Or Pre-prepared emergency survival supplies? How long do you think it would be before help would arrive? Most of the buzz you hear around survival preparation suggests you have an emergency preparedness kit or emergency survival supplies to sustain you for 72 hours. This is definitely better than no emergency prepared kit at all. But in a major disaster, do you really believe that the local, state, or federal government can get to everyone in only 3 days? Why do I need emergency preparedness? Emergency preparedness is a topic that is often overlooked. Emergencies will happen. Nobody can predict when or where the emergencies may occur. Natural disasters, accidents, disease, and civil unrest all contribute to the probability of experiencing a survival situation, and these threats increase every year. The only way to maximize the chance of survival in survival situations is to achieve survival preparedness. Preparation is the key to overcoming fear. How is emergency preparedness achieved? The first step in emergency preparedness is to identify potential survival situations you and your loved ones could experience. Review threats that could cause emergencies such as weather, diseases, transit conditions, etc. Understand when and where each individual disaster could present itself. Only by understanding potential survival situations can you adequately prepare for them. Second, create emergency plans for each emergency scenario. This plan should include exit plans, meeting locations, emergency contacts, location of survival kits, first aid and emergency response training. Review emergency plans often with family members so the information is fresh and retainable. To maximize emergency preparedness, post the plans in easy-to-read places in the home, work, and in the car. The next step is to acquire a survival kit. These kits are sold online or can be assembled yourself, though the cost to build a survival kit yourself could be more costly than purchasing one online. Be sure your survival kit has a complete list of survival preparedness supplies. Customize each survival kit, adding items to accommodate your unique personal needs and those of your family. Finally, review all survival preparedness supplies and emergency plans often, updating them and customizing them for your particular needs. Once your survival preparedness is complete, share your knowledge with friends, family members, and coworkers. Working together and sharing information, we can ensure everyone's survival. Do not put off survival preparedness. Predicting survival situations is virtually impossible, but preparing for them is easy. Being prepared for emergencies will give you peace of mind knowing that your survival preparedness will take care of you when you need it the most. Emergency preparedness for the office. Emergency preparedness is essential in all aspects of a person's life. Whether at school, home, or at work, you must be prepared for emergencies, especially the places where the most time is spent. The majority of the average person's day is spent at work. The workplace has the same need for survival preparedness as the home. Though places of work may appear safe and immune from emergencies, they are just as vulnerable as your home. Employers have the responsibility of providing a safe workplace and one that is prepared for emergencies. Walk through your workplace and identify potential hazards. Then plan and prepare for those hazards. Be sure your employees understand the hazards of the office and the precautions that can be taken to avoid them. Also, explain to them the proper actions to take if an emergency arises. Such discussions should include emergency exits, fire extinguishers, alarm systems, and communication systems with local authorities, and where the survival kits are located. Survival kits for offices can be purchased online and are very economical. One survival kit can support a group of employees in an emergency situation. Many kits on the market today can support 5 or even 10 employees. Having enough survival preparedness kits to sustain all workers is crucial to providing safety for employees. Today, Survival kits are sold with a complete list of survival preparedness supplies such as food and water, blankets, lights and communication devices, first aid, emergency tools, hygiene and entertainment items. Do not simply buy a survival kit because it is inexpensive. Make sure a kit contains a complete supply of survival items before purchasing it. Building a survival kit yourself is more time-consuming and can be much more costly than purchasing a pre-assembled kit online. Assign a worker to be in charge of emergency preparedness for the office. This person will acquire the appropriate emergency supplies and decide where to store them. Be sure the supplies are not all stored in the same place, as some parts of the office may not be accessible during an emergency. Check the survival kits often to make sure they are complete and up to date. Also, the person left in charge of survival preparedness for the office should routinely review and make updates to the office emergency plan, making adjustments often to keep it current. Another option an office can easily accomplish to achieve emergency preparedness is to get a supply of water and store it in the office. Many offices use water dispensers, water coolers. The water for these devices is delivered in large containers. These containers are a great way to store water in the office. Always enough water stored in your office to sustain all employees for at least a couple of days. Chapter 4: Emergency Preparedness for Child Care Providers and Home Preparedness. Child care providers are agencies that take up temporary responsibility for children. Disasters can occur at any time, and child care providers are usually prepared for handling the influx of orphaned or deserted children during such emergencies. During the September 11th attack on the World Trade Center in New York City, child care providers had to relocate thousands of children who were in proximity to the terror attack. Prior planning on the part of the child care providers can prevent loss of life or severe injury. Child care providers are usually trained in methods of quick evacuation in case of an emergency. There could be various situations that call for evacuation, such as a fire, terror attack, or a storm. Care providers are usually well informed of the action to be taken according to the type of emergency. For instance, in the case of fire, child care providers are trained to try to determine the cause of fire by the color of smoke. This enables them to put the fire out more quickly by using the right type of extinguishers. To prepare for medical emergencies, child care providers are trained in first aid techniques. However, if the condition of a child is critical or does not improve after the administration of first aid, they rush the child to an emergency medical facility. Child care providers have to be aware of the storage area of food and water. To prepare for power failures during disasters, emergency lights or battery-operated lamps have to be kept handy. If there is a storage of drinking water, the available should be used sparingly and rationed. It is in the best interest of young ones that care providers partake in periodic exercises to test their emergency preparedness abilities. Is your family prepared? Do you know how to get your family prepared for an emergency? Do you know where to obtain information that is of vital consequence to your family's survival? One of the first things one should do is to contact entities such as the American Red Cross and any other offices in your area to get educated as to the type of natural and/or man-made disasters that can possibly occur in your area of the country. Ask for any and all printed material that you can obtain to educate yourself. Educate yourself as to what, if any, warning systems are in place in your town and what it is that you need to do when those warning signals go off. What are you supposed to do with your family pets if you have any? Where are they supposed to go, if anywhere? There is a distinct possibility that animals may not be allowed in emergency shelters for the health concerns of others. What if there are elderly in your household? How are you going to care for and transport them if an emergency occurs? Do you have ample medical supplies and supplies for them? Again, call the school district in your area to find out what emergency preparedness plan of action they have. Find out if your workplace has an emergency action plan in place. All of these things will help to make you more prepared and capable of timely reaction in the event of a crisis. Armed with the knowledge obtained from the American Red Cross and other emergency-related departments contacted in your area, it is going to be time to put an emergency disaster plan together. Sit down with your family and explain why this meeting is being held. Inform them of the need to know about what kind of natural and man-made disasters can put your family in a crisis situation. Write out a plan on paper and delegate certain responsibilities to each member of your family unit. Be a team. Explain the particular crisis that can occur and what to do in each case. I know it seems simple, but make sure that everyone knows every other member's phone numbers and the address in which you reside. If you have a friend or family member that is from out of state, contact them and ask them if you can use them as an out-of-state contact for your family in cases of emergency. Discuss evacuation options with your family and choose one that fits your family needs. Make sure your family can operate as a smooth, working, informed, and well-trained unit is tantamount to being prepared for any crisis situation or emergency that can occur. Be prepared. Emergency Preparedness Basic Checklist. Do you have a basic emergency crisis to-do checklist? If you don't, it is time to get together with your family and make one, and make sure your entire family unit memorizes it and utilizes it in times of emergency. Number 1. Make sure that all emergency numbers are posted and located near your phones: fire department, police department, ambulance, hospital, etc. Number 2. Everyone in the house should know when and how to contact 911 for help with a crisis situation. Number 3. Teach everyone in the household the location and how to turn off the power and gas, water, and all main switches to the house. Number 4. Review your insurance policies with your agent. Make sure that you have proper coverages. Number 5. Have enough fire extinguishers in the house and make sure everyone knows how to use them. Number 6. Make sure that there are enough smoke detectors in the home and that the batteries are good. Number 7. Inspect your home and look for anything that could be considered a hazard and correct it. Number 8. Make sure that you have ample emergency supplies and an emergency preparedness kit. Number 9. A good idea for the entire family and something that can be done together is an American Red Cross First Aid CPR course. Number 10. Make sure that everyone in the house knows the best routes of escape from the house. Number 11. For every kind of emergency or disaster, make sure that everyone in the house knows the safest places in the home for each type of emergency situation. Chapter 5. Emergency Plan? What is an emergency preparedness plan? Would everyone in your household know what to do when an emergency or disaster strikes? Meet with your family and discuss why you need to prepare for disaster. Explain the dangers of fire, severe weather, and earthquakes to children. Discuss which disasters would be most likely to occur in your area, and explain what to do in each situation. Develop and practice your emergency plan. In an emergency situation, remember, every second counts. It is important to have occasional emergency preparedness drills to practice out your plan. Without practicing, your plan will be less effective and possibly put you and your family in dangerous situations that could have been avoided. Testing out your plan will also help you identify any areas that need improvement. Every emergency plan should include the following: location, a designated meeting place for all family members to meet in an emergency situation right outside your home, in case of a sudden emergency such as a fire, and also one meeting location right outside of your neighborhood in case you cannot return home. Emergency phone numbers. Make sure to include an out-of-state contact that everyone can call to give and receive updates. An out-of-state contact is especially important to have in case family members are not together when the disaster strikes, or if one is unable to reach the designated meeting place. Evacuation plan. Need to include potential safety hazards to stay away from, as well as indicate multiple evacuation routes. Provisions. Make sure that you are prepared for the type of disasters that you may find your family facing and that you may have to set up at least a 72-hour kit for each individual. Don't forget to grab your 72-hour kit. Financial and insurance information and important documentation. Make logs and videos of valuables for insurance information. Make copies of all your important documents and have them in a safe location. Remember, when preparing for an emergency situation, be sure to consider the basic necessities such as food, water, warmth, and shelter. Share your disaster plan with your neighbors and community. Organizing preparedness efforts before an emergency can help avoid much suffering and damage that can take place in an emergency situation. By implementing and practicing a community emergency preparedness drill to practice out your plan, will create awareness of the resources available in your area, identify risks, encourages preparedness in your community, and provides practice so that everyone knows what to do if an actual disaster were to strike. What is an emergency preparedness plan? An emergency preparedness plan helps ensure survival in case of personal or natural disaster. Each time a disaster hits, you must have an emergency preparedness plan determined beforehand. You can find a wide variety of types of potential calamity, so how must you plan? That naturally is dependent upon your residence. You ought to prepare with respect towards the necessities of your location and family. You will discover aspects of the emergency preparedness plan that will be the same for all. Being prepared for a reduction in supplies is critical. Whether the cause is a snowstorm, riots, or even a wildfire blocking the main route in town. You should have plenty of meals, water, medical resources, and ways of remaining comfortable to stay put if you're unable to travel anywhere. It is vital that you prepare a checklist of these types of resources comprising particular family members' needs. The emergency preparedness plan also must look into the needs of your loved ones. The plan must be reviewed by all adults in addition to children, so that each person knows what to do. For little ones, don't forget any baby resources, children's food, and/or medicine. Those that have continuous medical needs must be included into the preparedness plan. Do you have methods of storing chilled insulin for a diabetic if ever the electricity goes out? Do you have additional inhalers in the event that reaching the shop is not possible or the supply chain stops? You must purchase a few things up front to be able to stay supplied and secure, as well as not move out during an emergency time. For people with young children or even other loved ones, they probably are the most critical thing on your list that you might want to keep safe. Households need to assign a responsible, ready-bodied grown-up to each dependent. When misfortune happens, who gets the baby out of daycare? Cell service might be down, so straightforward preparing is really important to reduce the time you are away. Who will care for mother that is bedridden? During emergency time, it can turn into a dog-eat-dog world. The emergency plan might also want to supply alternate plans. Where will you proceed should the house burn down? Just where will you link up when you get separated? Precisely what ought to be carried out when an individual gets injured? In case you designed on relying upon well water after a hurricane and the pump is defective, how else are you going to obtain water? If you ever anticipated to make use of your own power generator and it is robbed, how else will you keep warm? An emergency preparedness plan really should determine when you leave, together with contingency plans for abandoning the area. At which point during the calamity should you attempt to get out of town? When should you choose to vacate a home? You must know ahead of time the ways to take. Locate alternate paths in the event there might be a street shut down. What should you do when the car breaks down? Have you identified an out-of-city site where you can travel to? Take these under consideration while you create your emergency preparedness plan. In addition to buying emergency preparedness kits, there are many important points that should be considered while planning for emergencies. In the previous article of this series, we have covered some of these points. Given below are some more tips by which you can prepare your family for emergencies. Review your insurance policies timely. Always review your medical insurance, life insurance, car insurance, property insurance, and other insurance policies and make necessary changes. An emergency can leave you in a tough financial situation, and in such a situation, an insurance coverage can help you sufficiently in recovering. Pay your premiums in time to avoid any sort of issues later. Maintain a contact list. Maintain a proper list of all your contacts, including your family members, relatives, friends, neighbors, and colleagues. This will assure that you have someone to contact during emergencies. Also, keep a printed copy of the contacts in the emergency kit. Buying a shortwave radio, which can help you communicate with your contacts in the absence of cell phone, is also worth considering. Think before spending. If you have not yet bought an emergency preparedness kit, then it will be a good idea to trade a night out to arrange funds for one. A casual night out for dinner and a movie with your family can often cost something around $100, which can fund a good quality emergency kit. Secure every aspect. Emergencies will not wait to strike until you reach home. Therefore, it is important to cover all your bases at first. Do not forget to keep simple emergency preparedness kits in the car, office, and in addition to one at home. An average person spends a considerable amount of his time at work and travel, and this aspect of emergency preparedness cannot be overlooked. Also, ensure that the location selected for storing emergency kits is easily approachable by every family member. After so many tips, I'm sure that even though you may or may not be able to abide by all of them, but a beginning is all you need. A step towards emergency preparedness will automatically lead your way towards others that will help you keep yourself and your family safe during disasters. Chapter 6. Guidelines for maintaining your emergency preparedness kit. It is very important to make sure that you are prepared for an emergency by putting together a survival kit that has essential survival items. The kit will come in handy when you do not have ready access to important items that you need on a daily basis. It is important to have a survival kit, whether it is for your home or car. It is one thing to have a kit, but it is equally important to maintain the kit in order to ensure that all the supplies are in good working order or are safe to use. The following maintenance tips are important. Storing the food. If you have canned food as part of your emergency preparedness kit, you need to make sure that you store the food in a cool, dry place. This will help to ensure that the food does not go bad due to humid conditions. The box food should be stored in closed metal or plastic containers to extend the shelf life and to keep away pests. Inspect the food regularly and throw away any canned food if the cans are swollen, corroded, or dented. It is a good idea to date all the items and keep rotating the stored food to replace the items with fresh supplies. This will help to reduce wastage as the food expires over time. Testing the equipment. It is important to inspect and test equipment on a regular basis to make sure that everything is in good working condition. This will help to prevent a scenario where your equipment fails to work in time of an emergency. Make sure that all the items in your emergency car kit are working effectively and replace any faulty equipment with new supplies. Updating the kit. If the last time you put together your emergency kit is 10 years ago, you need to update your equipment. As better supplies become available, you need to replace old items with the new models. Updating the kit regularly will help to ensure that you have the best items to cater for your family needs. It is also important to consider the changes in your family. If your kids are all grown, you do not need the diapers or items that you stored when they were much younger. When storing the items, place the newer items at the back and the older ones in the front, so that you know the items that need to be replaced first. Keep the items in airtight bags and make sure that all the supplies can fit into 1 or 2 bags. When a natural disaster happens, there is nothing anyone can do to prevent it. The best thing a person can do is to be prepared for every emergency. Most towns and cities have plans in place should a natural disaster happen in their town. The plans your government has made do not have anything to do with an individual. They are for the community as a whole. They most likely have a plan to provide better shelter and the basic necessities to the people if they need to. There are some disasters that wipe out entire cities, but there are smaller ones that happen regularly. People are spread over the planet, and each area has a particular climate and bad weather that is common. In some areas it could be flooding, while other areas may endure hurricanes or earthquakes. Schools have taught children what to do in certain emergencies, and that training has saved many lives. It would be wise of you to have your family practice fire drills, tornado drills, and have a plan to meet if you should be separated during an emergency. We have systems in place that can provide some advance warning when some disasters are about to strike. Unfortunately, there is no way to predict others, and we need to be ready. Keeping a few supplies for your family and saving vital information will be very helpful if you need to evacuate in a hurry. These emergency kits are your lifeline when a disaster happens, no matter what it may be. They have extra food, water, and other supplies that you need. If there isn't any power, they have flashlights, emergency radios, and plenty of batteries. They also can have blankets, cooking supplies, emergency fuel for cooking or driving, as well as many other items. They also have first aid kits in case you are injured because of an accident, while there is an earthquake, tornado, or other disaster. These kits should also have some basic manuals on first aid as well as survival. No matter where you live, you should have emergency preparedness kits somewhere in your house and in your car as well. Yes, you should carry one of these around in your vehicle at all times because you just never know when you can get stranded somewhere. Emergency kits for your car, while much the same as the home kits, should have other things included as well. Some of these needed items are emergency flares, signaling devices, and jumper cables. Here you're going to need at least one flashlight, as well as extra batteries. You need to have some other basic survival items, emergency food, blankets, and a first aid kit. You just never know when an emergency can strike, and having well-stocked emergency preparedness kits can save the lives of you and your family. These emergency kits should be put somewhere that is safe and where you can get at them quickly and easily. They should not only be well stocked, but you also need to make sure that you can check them regularly and rotate items that have a short shelf life, like batteries and emergency rations. Water is something that is vitally important in any emergency situation, and extra water supplies should be stored in a cool, dry place out of sight. You can find ready-made emergency prepared kits, or you can make up your own, so they fulfill your family's individual needs. There are many different websites that can help you. You need to have these emergency kits prepared ahead of time, or you are going to regret it. It is better to have one or more on hand and never have to use it, rather than to have some kind of disaster happen and not have it. Chapter 7. Some basic things to consider for an emergency preparedness disaster plan. There are so many ways in which a family can become prepared for a disaster or emergency situation. In fact, there are so many things to consider, it can become overwhelming at times, and many don't know where to begin. So here are some of the basics to learn and consider. Hopefully these basics will guide you towards more advanced steps in your quest to create and implement a natural disaster emergency preparedness plan of action. In any situation that may arise, a person's household should be prepared for any emergency. All the members of the house should be briefed and firmly educated in an emergency preparedness plan of action for the home. Each person should have responsibilities delegated to them, and every once in a while, the family should get together and practice some drills and make sure that everyone knows what they are supposed to do in an emergency. Remember, practice makes perfect. One of the most shocking and reality-shattering things that can ever happen to a person or family is having to evacuate the home in time of emergency. This causes the "my life flashing before my eyes" syndrome. Many people feel as if they are leaving their lives behind if they have to evacuate. Well, the fact of the matter is that if you don't evacuate, you might very well leave your life behind in a destroyed home. Be prepared to evacuate if necessary. If an evacuation becomes necessary, there might be a very short notice, so you and your family will need to know in advance where and what to take with them if you have to leave. If you have a plan as to which way you will go in an evacuate scenario, then it is advisable to have a backup plan in case the first one will not work. Always remember that everyone should have the phone numbers of the other family members and have at least one or two places that the family can meet if an emergency should arise. Oh, by the way, always make sure there is gas in the family car so that if you have to bug out, you can get there. As with many families in America, there is always someone that might have some kind of ailment or condition. When putting together your emergency disaster plan and supplies, don't forget to consider this. Do not forget to have ample medical supplies for every member of the house, and make sure that these medicines are of both the standard type of over-the-counter stuff that everyone will need or use, and don't forget to have enough of the prescription type medicines for those in the house that may have a condition. Don't forget all the general hygiene items and sanitary supplies, and make sure that you have at least 3 days' worth of these items for each person in the home. It is also advisable to have mini versions of your emergency kits in each car in the home as well. Many people think that if a disaster strikes and they have to evacuate, and they all of a sudden forget the wallet that they left on the kitchen table, everything will be all right when the emergency is over. Always have copies of personal identification in all of your gear. Keep a copy of your ID in your bug-out bag, and if you don't have one, you might consider getting a safety deposit box at your local bank and keeping copies of the family identification in that box. It is also advisable that if you have someone that you can trust in another location, to have copies of your documentation with them as well. What constitutes important documentation? driver's license, birth certificates, insurance documents, a marriage certificate, and/or a divorce decree. Okay, bad attempt at humor, but I hope you are getting the gist of it. Be advised that copies of a deed to your home is a good idea, as well as pictures of family members, so that in the event that someone is not where they're supposed to be, or they lost you, you can show authorities a picture of that person that is missing. This is just a basic outline of what to have in case of an emergency or disaster. We live in uncertain times, and anything can happen at any time. Emergency preparedness for an earthquake. An earthquake can strike at any time, and better preparedness for an earthquake can ensure your safety and your family's safety. During an earthquake, one can feel vibrations of the ground, noise which progressively grows louder, swaying sensation, etc. Most injuries and deaths from earthquakes are due to falling objects and debris, especially near the entry and exit points. Knowing how an earthquake can affect you and planning to deal with it beforehand can greatly reduce the chances of injury and death. Emergency preparedness for an earthquake involves discussing with your family about steps to take when an earthquake occurs. When people are filled with panic and fear during an earthquake, they tend to act in an improper way. Planning to deal with an earthquake before it occurs can enable your family to act in the best possible way when the earthquake strikes. Top 10 emergency preparedness for an earthquake. Here are the top 10 emergency preparedness tips for an earthquake. Know the safe spots in your home. Safe spots are those places where there is minimal chance of an object and debris falling from above. Some examples of safe spots are hallways, archways, room corners, spots under heavy tables, desks, etc. Practice safety drills with your family. Safety drills are the actions one has to take during an earthquake. Some of these safety drills you can practice with your family are getting under heavy table or desk, covering one's face with arms, staying clear of places where objects can fall, standing or crouching in safe spots, corners, and strongly supported doorways. Evacuation plans. An evacuation plan enables your family to escape during the first signs of an emergency. You can discuss and come up with a sketch of the evacuation plan for your house. You can also include a second evacuation plan. Repair. Leaky gas connections, improper electrical wiring, and defective utility services can be hazardous during an emergency, so make sure you repair such problems in your home by seeking professional help. Anchor the appliances. Fixtures. Anchor the appliances such as a refrigerator, gas equipment, furnace, water heater, etc. firmly to the wall. Overhead lighting fixtures should also be anchored. This will minimize the falling of objects during an earthquake. Put heavy objects in lower shelves. Heavy objects, breakables such as china, glass, etc., should be placed in lower shelves. This will prevent them from falling and causing injuries during an earthquake. Make a list of important information. Write down important information such as telephone numbers, vehicle numbers, medication lists, bank account numbers, etc., and put them in a secure place. Make a priority list. Make a priority list which details the actions to be done when an earthquake strikes. Your list can include important things to carry such as food, utilities, etc., turning off utilities, locking doors, using fire extinguisher, etc. Store important documents. Store important documents such as insurance policies, education certificates, birth certificates, wills, etc., in a fireproof safe. Ensure your home has a stable foundation. Make sure your home has a strong foundation. Also, take up any repairs if necessary. Additional items for an emergency preparedness survival kit. Your basic emergency survival preparedness kit will contain the most essential items such as water, food, a battery-operated radio, and flashlight. But it is also important to remember that other factors such as your particular location, flood, tornado, or hurricane zone, your local weather, personnel and family, medical needs, and pets will also impact what your survival kit should contain. In an emergency disaster survival situation, you want to try to be as prepared as possible. It is better to have something and not use it than to need something and not have it. So in addition to your basic survival preparedness kit, here are a few more items to consider when putting together your survival kit. Prescription medications. For yourself and your family members, also note if these are to be taken with food, water, milk, etc. Eyeglasses and/or contact lenses. Infant formula and diapers. Pet food and extra water for your pet. Copies of important family documents stored in a portable, waterproof container. These could include insurance policies, birth certificates, identification, passport ID page, bank account records, etc. Cash, traveler's checks, and change. Emergency first aid reference material. Sleeping bag or blanket for each person. Additional bedding if you live in a cold climate. Complete change of clothing, including long-sleeve shirts, pants, and shoes or boots. Again, additional clothing as appropriate for cold weather climates. Household chlorine bleach, unscented without additives, and an eyedropper. This can be used as a disinfectant, 1 part bleach to 9 parts water, or, in extreme situations, to treat water, 16 drops bleach to 1 gallon of water. A fire extinguisher. Strike anywhere matches in waterproof container. Feminine personal hygiene products. Mess kits, 1 per person, including paper cups and plates, plastic utensils, and towels. Paper and pencil. Books, games, puzzles, or other activities for children. Depending on your personal requirements, your emergency preparedness survival kit may include some, none, or all of the more items above listed. Remember, the most important thing is to not just prepare your survival list in advance, but then to assemble it, since it's better to have something and not use it than to need something and not have it. Closing credits. This has been Emergency Preparedness, learning about plans and kits for disaster survival. Written by Wesley Jones. Narrated by Rick Parody. Copyright 2018 by Wesley Jones. Production copyright 2018 by Wesley Jones.